All right, let's dive right into this explainer. If you're looking for a complete, detailed, and comprehensive case digest for your labor law subject, well, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're unpacking a massive landmark case regarding the rights of piece rate workers. We're going to go through the whole shebang, the facts, the petitioners' and respondents' arguments, the rulings from the LA, NLRC, and the CA, the core issues, and of course, the Supreme Court's final ruling and ratio. We're looking at GR No. 192282, A. Nate Casket Maker versus Elias v. Arango. Here is our agenda for today. 1. The facts and arguments. 2. Rulings of lower courts. 3. The core legal issues. 4. The Supreme Court ruling. And 5. Ratio decidendi and doctrine. Section 1. The facts and arguments.
Now, you might be wondering, what is the fundamental question at the heart of all this? It really boils down to this. Are piece rate workers entitled to regular employee benefits? When someone is paid by the piece, like, say, by the casket, instead of by the hour, what exact rights do they actually have under the law? Do they have security of tenure? It's a tricky area, for sure.
So, let's set the scene. From 1998 all the way to 2007, Elias Arango and a group of others worked continuously for A. Nate's Casket Maker. We're talking carpenters, painters, and masadors. And get this, they were stay-in workers. They lived there, and they labored relentlessly from Monday to Saturday, literally from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. But because they were paid under the Pacquiao system, meaning they just got paid per job order or per casket they finished, they didn't receive any regular benefits at all. No overtime, no holiday pay, just the piece rate. Well, in early 2007, things hit a breaking point, and the two sides have wildly different stories. The employers, the Nates, claim that the workers were drinking, quarreling, and just failing to finish their job orders. So the employers said they tried to offer a new, beneficial, contractual agreement to help them out. But the workers? They told a completely different story. They claimed they were summoned in March 2007 and basically forced to sign a 5-month contract that explicitly stripped away their rights. No sick leave, no vacation leave, no 13th month pay, and they could be fired at any time. When the workers refused to sign this terrible deal, they said the employers just told them to go home. Boom, fired. Section 2. Rulings of lower courts. Talk about an emotional roller coaster for these workers. They filed a complaint, but in August 2007, the labor arbiter entirely dismissed it, basically saying, hey, you're Pacquiao workers, you don't get these extra benefits. Then, in July 2008, the NLRC affirmed that dismissal. So they've lost twice now, but they kept fighting. And in January 2010, the Court of Appeals stepped in, completely reversed the lower decisions, and declared it was an illegal dismissal. A massive, game-changing victory. Section 3. The core legal issues. Because of that crazy legal whiplash, the Supreme Court had to step in and clear things up. They zeroed in on two absolutely crucial issues. Number 1, factually and legally, were these workers illegally dismissed by the petitioners, or did they just abandon their jobs? And number 2, are Pacquiao, or task-based workers, considered regular employees who are entitled to things like overtime, holiday pay, service incentive leave, and 13th month pay? Section 4. The Supreme Court ruling. Okay, so what did the highest court in the land decide? They firmly agreed with the Court of Appeals. The dismissal was illegal. The Supreme Court pointed out that the burden of proving a valid dismissal is entirely on the employer. And here, there was no investigation, no written notice, absolutely zero due process. They ruled that you simply cannot use a highly restrictive 5-month contract to subvert a worker's security of tenure. Because of the sheer inequality between employers and employees, the workers' positive assertion of being fired easily outweighed the employer's unproven denials. Now, let's break down the monetary claims, because it is a bit of a mixed bag. They won back wages because of the illegal dismissal, though the exact amount had to be computed by the NLRC based on their varying piece rate production. They also won separation pay. Normally, illegally dismissed workers are reinstated, but remember, by the time the Supreme Court ruled, 9 years had passed. Reinstatement just wasn't practical anymore, so separation pay was given instead. They also won holiday and service incentive leave pay. But, notice that last one? They actually lost their claim for 13th month pay. To understand why that happened, we need to look at the legal doctrine.
Section 5. Ratio decidendi and doctrine.
So here is the real aha moment of this digest. Why were these Pacquiao workers considered regular employees with security of tenure in the first place? It's all because of the control test. The court said an employment relationship exists when the employer controls not just the end result, the finished casket, but the actual manner and details of how the work is performed. Think about the facts here. The employers checked the workers' logbooks daily to compute their pay. They actively instructed them on the specific steps. carpentry, masia, rubbing, and painting. Because the employers held that power of control over how the job was done, these workers were, without a doubt, regular employees. But what about the benefits? Under Article 82 of the Labor Code, there's a category called field personnel, people who work away from the main office and whose hours you can't really track. Field personnel are generally exempt from getting holiday and service incentive leave pay. But were our casket makers field personnel? No way. They were stay-in workers making caskets right there inside the petitioner's shop. Their hours and performance were totally supervised. Because they were definitely not field personnel, the general rule kicked in. They were legally entitled to holiday and service incentive leave pay. Right, but what about the 13th month pay they lost? Well, this is where a really fascinating statutory nuance comes into play. The Labor Code isn't the only law here. The governing law for 13th month pay is actually Presidential Decree No. 851. And Section 3E of that decree explicitly exempts employers from paying 13th month pay to anyone paid on a task basis, period. Unlike the Labor Code, which requires a task worker to also be a field personnel to lose holiday pay, PD 851 only cares if you are paid on a task basis. Since they were paid per casket, by the task, they fell squarely into that legal exemption and lost out on the 13th month pay. I want to highlight this quote from the decision because it absolutely hits the nail on the head regarding Philippine labor law. The Supreme Court said, "It should be made clear that when the law tilts the scales of justice in favor of labor, it is in recognition of the inherent economic inequality between labor and management." The courts know that workers often lack real options, and they have to remain vigilant so employers don't use tricky contracts to strip away basic rights. So what does this all mean for us today? As you finalize your digest, think about how this 2016 casket maker case ripples into our modern gig economy. If an app controls the exact manner of how you do your work, does that make you a regular employee under the control test? And if you're paid by the task, which specific benefits are you guaranteed, and which ones are exempted by old decrees like PD 851? The line between field personnel and a task basis exemption is incredibly thin, but as we've seen, it makes all the difference in the world. Something to chew on. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.